The rain was supposed to wash away evidence. Instead, it saved her life. 23-year-old Kiara Mitchell lay crumpled in a dark alley in Koreatown, blood mixing with rainwater, her designer dress torn, her body screaming from injuries she couldn't even catalog yet. Her her ex-fiancé, had just thrown her out of his car like garbage after she'd discovered the truth. The wedding was supposed to be in 2 weeks. The merger between her family's tech company and his pharmaceutical empire was supposed to make them Manhattan royalty. But Kiara had found the files, the evidence of trafficking, money laundering, and worse. And when she'd confronted him, Darius Thompson had shown her exactly what kind of monster she'd been about to marry, but Kiara didn't hit the pavement alone. Because walking past that alley at exactly the right moment was Jun Hyuk, owner of the most exclusive restaurant in the city, and the underboss of the Korean Mafia who'd been tracking Darius Thompson's operation for 6 months. Some women get rescued by heroes. Kiara got rescued by someone far more dangerous. And sometimes, that's exactly what you need. Before we dive into how one woman's broken engagement led to the most explosive revenge story in Manhattan, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling us, have you ever discovered someone's true nature too late? Because this story is about betrayal, vengeance, and the fine line between savior and destroyer. The Mitchell family had built their empire from nothing. Kiara's parents, both immigrants who'd arrived in America with engineering degrees and $200 between them, had created Sentinel Tech Solutions in their garage 25 years ago. Now it was worth $300 million, specializing in secure database management and encryption software for medical institutions. Kiara had grown up watching her parents sacrifice everything for success. She'd been raised to be perfect, educated at the best schools, fluent in English, Mandarin, and French, trained in classical piano and modern business strategy. By 23, she had a degree in forensic accounting from Yale and a position on her family's board of directors. She was also engaged to Darius Thompson, heir to Thompson Pharmaceuticals, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies on the East Coast. The engagement had been announced 6 months ago at a gala that made the cover of Forbes. The merger between Sentinel Tech and Thompson Pharma was being called the deal of the decade. Kiara's parents were thrilled. Darius was handsome, charming, from a good family, and the merger would secure their legacy for generations. But Kiara had always been too smart for her own good. 2 weeks before the wedding, while reviewing the final merger documents, she'd noticed something odd. Shell companies in the Cayman Islands, unexplained transfers to offshore accounts, clinical trial data that didn't match FDA filings. She'd started digging, using the forensic accounting skills her professors had praised. What she found made her blood run cold. Thompson Pharmaceuticals wasn't just in the business of medicine. They were running a human trafficking operation disguised as international medical recruitment. Nurses and doctors from Southeast Asia were being promised jobs in America, only to arrive and find themselves trapped in debt bondage, forced to work in illegal clinics that served as fronts for organ trafficking and experimental drug testing. The Sentinel Tech software her family had designed was being used to manage the trafficking database. Names, locations, transaction records, all encrypted with her family's technology. Darius had chosen her specifically. Not for love, for access to the one thing that could expose his entire operation. Kiara had confronted him that night, right after the Thompson family charity gala. She'd waited until they were alone in his Mercedes, rain hammering against the windshield as his driver navigated through Manhattan traffic. I found the files, she'd said quietly. The shell companies, the trafficking operation, everything. Darius had gone very still. Then he'd smiled, and Kiara had seen the monster underneath the charm for the first time. You weren't supposed to find those for another month, he'd said. Not until after the wedding, when the merger was final and you couldn't back out without destroying your family's company. I'm not marrying you, I'm going to the FBI. That's when he'd hit her. Once, twice, his fist connecting with her face, her ribs, her body. The driver had kept driving, not even flinching at the sounds of violence from the back seat. You think you're so smart, Darius had snarled, his hands around her throat. But you're just a stupid girl who doesn't understand how the world really works. Your family's software is already implicated. You go to the FBI. And I'll make sure they think Sentinel Tech was complicit all along. Your parents will lose everything. They might even go to prison. He'd released her throat, and Kiara had gasped for air, tasting blood. But I'm feeling generous tonight, Darius had continued. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to have an accident, a mugging gone wrong in a bad neighborhood. Tragic, really. And I'll play the grieving fiancé beautifully. The merger will go through as a tribute to your memory. Your parents will never know what you found, and they'll keep their company. He'd signaled to the driver who'd pulled into Koreatown, an area Kiara never visited, where she wouldn't be recognized. Or, Darius had said, opening the car door to the pouring rain, you can try to survive this and come after me, but we both know you won't. You're not strong enough. Then he'd thrown her out of the car into the alley. Kiara had hit the wet pavement hard, her head cracking against concrete, her ribs screaming, her wrist snapping. She'd lain there in the rain, bleeding, broken, and furious. Darius was right about one thing. The old Kiara, the perfect daughter, the Yale graduate who'd never broken a rule in her life, wouldn't survive this. But maybe she didn't have to be that Kiara anymore. That's when she'd heard footsteps. Jun Hyuk had been walking back to his restaurant after a business meeting when he'd heard the car stop, heard the sounds of someone being thrown from a vehicle. He'd stepped into the alley just in time to see a black woman in a torn evening gown struggling to sit up in the rain, blood streaming down her face. His first instinct was to keep walking. Manhattan was full of violence that wasn't his problem. But then he'd recognized the car pulling away, Darius Thompson's Mercedes. The same Darius Thompson whose pharmaceutical company had been moving product through Koreatown without permission, without paying tribute, without showing the proper respect to the people who actually controlled these streets. June had been tracking Thompson for 6 months, gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now Thompson had just gift-wrapped him a witness. He'd approached the woman carefully. She was young, early 20s, with rich brown skin, long black braids now matted with blood and rain, and dark eyes that held more fury than fear. "Can you stand?" he'd asked in English, though his accent still carried traces of soul. She'd tried, failed, gasped in pain. Ribs. Broken. June had made a decision. He'd pulled out his phone, sent a quick text in Korean, then crouched beside her. "I'm going to pick you up. This will hurt." "Who are you?" "Someone who hates Darius Thompson as much as you clearly do." He'd lifted her carefully, and she'd bitten back a scream. "My car is close. I have a doctor who won't ask questions." She should have protested. Should have demanded he call an ambulance, the police, someone official. Instead, she looked at him with those fierce eyes and asked, "Why are you helping me?" "Because my enemy just threw away something valuable, and I always pick up valuable things." A black SUV had pulled up, and June's men had jumped out. They'd reacted to the sight of their boss holding a bleeding woman with practiced efficiency, opening doors, pulling out medical supplies, not asking questions they knew wouldn't be answered. As June had settled her in the back seat, the woman had grabbed his arm with surprising strength despite her injuries. "I have evidence," she'd whispered. "Everything Thompson is doing, trafficking, money laundering, all of it. I can help you destroy him." June had looked at this broken, bleeding woman who was already thinking about revenge instead of survival, and he'd smiled. "Tell me your name." "Kiara Mitchell." And that's when June had realized exactly how valuable she was. Mitchell, as in Sentinel Tech Solutions, as in the company Thompson was merging with, as in the technology that ran Thompson's entire operation. This wasn't just a witness. This was a weapon. "Kiara Mitchell," he'd said softly, "I think you and I are going to be very good friends." She'd passed out then, the adrenaline finally crashing, leaving her unconscious in the arms of one of the most dangerous men in Manhattan. And when she woke up, her entire life would be different. Drop a comment if you've ever had your world destroyed in a single night. Hit subscribe because this story is about to get a whole lot more dangerous. Kiara woke up in a bedroom that was too nice to be a hospital. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, minimalist furniture that screamed expensive, sheets with a thread count higher than her credit score. For a moment, she thought maybe the alley had been a nightmare. Then she tried to move, and pain exploded through her body. Don't. A voice spoke from the corner. Dr. Yoon said you need to stay still for at least another day. Kiara's head turned carefully. The man from the alley sat in a chair by the window, watching her with dark, intense eyes. In the daylight streaming through the windows, she could see him clearly for the first time. He was probably in his mid-30s, Korean, devastatingly handsome in a way that was almost dangerous. Sharp features, strong jaw, black hair styled perfectly. He wore an expensive suit like it was armor, and there was something about the way he carried himself that screamed power. "Where am I?" Kiara's voice came out rough. "My private residence, above my restaurant in Koreatown." He stood, moving with liquid grace, and approached the bed. "I'm Jun Hyuk, though most people call me Jun. You own Hwagok." It wasn't a question. Kiara knew the restaurant, impossible to get reservations, rumored to be a front for organized crime, frequented by people who made decisions that never appeared in newspapers. "I do." Jun's smile was slight. "You're well informed." "I make it my business to be informed." Kiara tried to sit up, gasped at the pain. 2 broken ribs, fractured wrist, severe bruising, mild concussion, Jun recited. "Dr. Yoon wanted to hospitalize you, but I explained that wasn't an option. So he treated you here. You'll heal, but it will take time." "How long have I been here?" 18 hours. It's Saturday afternoon." Kiara's mind raced. Her parents would be looking for her. The wedding was in 13 days. Darius would be playing the concerned fiancé, probably filing a missing persons report. "I need to call my parents." "No." Jun's voice was firm. "Not yet. Right now, Darius Thompson thinks you're either dead or too broken to come after him. That's an advantage we're not giving up." Jun sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to jostle her. "You said you have evidence. Everything Thompson is doing. I want to see it." Kiara studied him. "Why?" "Because Thompson Pharmaceuticals has been operating in my territory without permission, moving product, running operations, treating Koreatown like it's theirs to exploit. That's disrespectful, and I don't tolerate disrespect. So this is about territory. This is about justice." Something dark flickered in Jun's eyes. 3 years ago, my sister Ji-yeon came to America on a nursing recruitment program. She was supposed to work at a hospital in New Jersey. Instead, she ended up trapped in one of Thompson's illegal clinics. By the time I found her, she was dead. "Overdose," the police said. "But I know better." Kiara's breath caught. "Thompson killed your sister. Thompson's operation killed her. And I've been waiting 3 years for the right moment to destroy him. Then last night, he literally threw that moment into my hands." Jun's gaze was intense. "You want revenge. So do I. But you're smart enough to know you can't do it alone. The legal system won't help you. Thompson's too connected, too powerful, too good at covering his tracks. And you're offering what? Illegal justice? I'm offering partnership. You have the evidence and the inside knowledge. I have the resources and the power. Together, we can do what the law can't." Kiara should have said no. Should have demanded he take her to the police, to the FBI, to anyone official. But she'd already tried the official route in her head during those 18 hours of unconsciousness, and she knew how it would end. Thompson would use his lawyers, his connections, his money. He'd implicate her family's company. Her parents would lose everything, and he'd walk away clean. "I want to see the evidence first," Jun said. "Then we'll decide if we can work together." Kiara made a decision that would change everything. "It's in a secure cloud storage. I'll need a computer." Jun smiled. "I think we can arrange that." 20 minutes later, Kiara sat propped up in bed with a laptop, her fractured wrist in a brace, pulling up files she'd hidden behind 7 layers of encryption. Jun stood behind her, watching the screen. As she opened document after document, his expression grew darker. Shell companies in 12 countries, fake medical recruitment agencies across Southeast Asia, illegal clinics in 5 states, financial records showing millions in revenue from organ trafficking, experimental drug trials on unwilling subjects, and debt bondage. And at the center of it all, Sentinel Tech's software, managing the database of victims, names, Ages, locations, transactions. Thousands of people reduced to inventory. My God, June breathed. This is bigger than I thought. My family's company provided the technology, Kiara said, her voice hollow. We didn't know, but our software is enabling all of this. Which is why Thompson chose you. He needed complete control of the tech to protect himself. And if I'd married him, he would have had it. Kiara closed the laptop. My parents would have signed over access as part of the merger. Thompson would have owned the evidence of his own crimes. June was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, "What do you want, Kiara Mitchell?" "Really want?" "I want Darius Thompson destroyed. I want every person he's trafficked freed. I want his empire burned to the ground so thoroughly that no one ever dares to build something like it again." Legal destruction or total destruction? Kiara met his eyes. Which one actually works? Total destruction. Legal systems can be bought, but fear, reputation, power, those are currencies that matter in the real world. Then that's what I want. June's smile was sharp and dangerous. Then let's plan a war. Over the next 3 days, as Kiara healed in June's private residence, they built a strategy. June brought in his most trusted people. Dante, his head of security, a Korean-American former Marine who looked like he could break someone in half. Min Seo, his operations manager, a sharp woman in her 40s who'd been with June's organization for 15 years. And Tae, his technology specialist, a genius hacker who could break into anything. They analyzed Kiara's evidence, cross-referenced it with June's intelligence, and discovered something crucial. Thompson wasn't working alone. He had partners, a network of corrupt officials, dirty cops, and compromised medical board members who made the whole operation possible. "We can't just take down Thompson," Mincio explained, spreading files across June's dining table. "We take down the entire network, everyone who enabled this." "How?" Kiara asked. She was mobile now, moving carefully but able to participate in planning sessions. "We expose them publicly," Tae said, fingers flying across his keyboard. "But not to the police or FBI. They're too easy to compromise. We expose them to everyone. Media, social media, international authorities, human rights organizations. Make it too big to cover up. And while the legal system is tearing them apart," June added, "we handle the parts the law won't touch. The enforcers, the clinic managers, the people who did the actual violence. They answer to me." Kiara looked at the plan taking shape. It was brilliant and terrifying and completely illegal in at least 7 ways. "When do we start?" she asked. June checked his watch. "Your wedding is in 10 days. I think that's the perfect time for Darius Thompson's world to end. Don't you?" Kiara's smile was cold. Absolutely perfect. But that night, alone in the guest bedroom, Kiara's confidence wavered. She stared at her phone, at the dozens of missed calls from her parents, from Darius, from her bridesmaids. Her mother's voicemails progressed from worried to frantic to devastated. There was a soft knock on the door. June entered without waiting for permission, carrying 2 glasses of whiskey. "You're thinking about calling them," he said, handing her a glass. "They think I'm dead. Or kidnapped. Or worse. If you call them, Thompson will know you survived. He'll change everything, move assets, destroy evidence, maybe even hurt them to get to you." "I know." Kiara took a long drink. The whiskey burned. "Doesn't make it easier." June sat beside her on the bed. "My parents didn't speak to me for 2 years after I took over my uncle's organization. They wanted me to be a doctor. Respectable. Safe. Instead, I became exactly what they feared. Do they talk to you now?" "They do. Because I showed them that what I built protects our community. The police don't care about crimes in Koreatown. The legal system doesn't help immigrant workers who are exploited. But I do. Sometimes the monster is necessary." Kiara looked at him. Really looked at him. Jun Hyuk was dangerous, criminal, feared. But he was also the only person who'd stopped to help her in that alley. The only person offering her real justice instead of empty promises. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked. "It's not just about your sister or territory. You could have taken my evidence and used it without involving me." June was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Because when I found you in that alley, bleeding and broken, you weren't crying or begging or hoping someone would save you. You were already planning your revenge. You reminded me of Jian. She would have fought back too, if she'd had the chance." He met Kiara's eyes. "I couldn't save my sister, but maybe I can help you save yourself, and thousands of others." Something shifted between them in that moment. An understanding, a connection, a recognition of shared darkness. "I'm not the same person I was before that alley," Kiara said softly. "Good. That person would have married Thompson and never known she was sleeping next to a monster. This person is going to destroy him." Kiara raised her glass. "To destruction." June clinked his glass against hers. "To justice." They drank, and neither of them mentioned that those two things might be the same. Let us know in the comments. Is revenge the same as justice? Subscribe, because this plan is about to get deadly. Day 7. 3 days until the wedding that would never happen. Kiara stood in June's home gym, practicing self-defense moves with Dante. Her ribs still ached, but Dr. Yoon had cleared her for light physical activity. "Again," Dante instructed. "Attacker grabs your wrist. What do you do?" Kiara twisted, used leverage instead of strength, broke the grip, followed with a strike to the solar plexus. Dante nodded approval. "Better. You're learning to use your brain instead of just your body." "I've always used my brain," Kiara said, breathing hard. "That's what got me into this mess." "No. Caring about the truth got you into this mess. Your brain is what's going to get you out." June entered the gym, phone in hand. "We have a problem." Kiara and Dante both turned. "Thompson just announced the wedding is postponed indefinitely," June said. "He's claiming you had a mental health crisis and checked into a private facility for treatment." Kiara's blood ran cold. "He's controlling the narrative. Worse, he's filed paperwork to have himself appointed as your medical proxy, claiming you're incapacitated and he needs to make decisions on your behalf, including decisions about Sentinel Tech." "He can't do that. We're not married." "He can if your parents support it," Mincio said, entering behind June. "And I just confirmed that he met with your parents this morning, showed them forged medical documents, convinced them you're in crisis and he's trying to help." Kiara felt her world tilting. "My parents would never." "Your parents think their daughter is suffering a breakdown, and the man who loves her is trying to save her," June interrupted gently. "Thompson is very convincing, and they have no reason to doubt him. I need to contact them. Tell them the truth. If you do that now, Thompson will know you're with me. He'll move everything, hurt them to draw you out, destroy any chance we have of taking him down properly." Kiara's hands clenched into fists. "So what do we do?" June's smile was sharp. "We move up our timeline. We don't wait for the wedding. We strike tomorrow night." The plan was audacious and completely insane. Thompson was hosting a charity gala the next evening, a fundraiser for international medical aid. 300 guests, including politicians, business leaders, and media personalities. The perfect stage for his destruction. "We'll expose everything at the gala," Tay explained, pulling up schematics of the venue. "I'll hack into the presentation system. When Thompson takes the stage to give his speech, instead of his planned presentation, we'll broadcast the evidence. Everything. The trafficking records, the financial documents, the victim database. All of it, displayed for 300 witnesses and live-streamed to every major news outlet." "While he's scrambling," Dante added, "we'll have teams hitting every illegal clinic simultaneously, freeing the people trapped there, securing hard evidence, making sure no one can destroy the proof." "And Thompson himself?" Kiara asked. June's expression was cold. "He's mine." "Ours," Kiara corrected. "I want to be there when you confront him." "Kiara, you're still healing?" "I don't care. He threw me away like garbage. I want him to see that I survived, that I won." June studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Ours." That night, Kiara couldn't sleep. She stood on June's balcony, overlooking Koreatown, thinking about everything that had changed in 1 week. 7 days ago, she'd been planning a wedding to a monster, blissfully unaware of the darkness surrounding her. Now she was planning the destruction of that same monster, partnered with a different kind of dangerous man. Having second thoughts? June joined her on the balcony. No, just thinking about who I was versus who I'm becoming. And who are you becoming? Someone who understands that the world isn't divided into good and evil. It's divided into people who have power and people who don't. And I'm tired of being powerless. June moved closer. Power is dangerous, Kiara. It changes you. Maybe I want to be changed. The old Kiara would have married Thompson and never known the truth. This Kiara is going to burn his empire to the ground. And after? When Thompson is destroyed? When the trafficking victims are freed? When justice is served? Who will you be then? It was a question Kiara hadn't let herself consider. I don't know. I do. June turned her to face him. You'll be exactly what you are right now. Strong, brilliant, dangerous. The question is, what will you do with that? They stood close enough that Kiara could feel his warmth, see the intensity in his dark eyes. This man who'd saved her, armed her, believed in her capacity for vengeance. June, she said softly, when this is over, will you disappear? Go back to your world and leave me to mine? His hand came up to cup her face, gentle despite the violence those hands were capable of. I don't think I could disappear from your life now if I tried. You've become too important. Important how? Instead of answering, he kissed her. It was nothing like the few chaste kisses she'd shared with Darius during their engagement. This was fire and hunger and something that felt like recognition, like two people who'd found their match in darkness. When they finally broke apart, Kiara was breathless. That's how, June said quietly. And if that's a problem, tell me now. Because after tomorrow, after we do this together, there's no going back. Kiara should have stepped away. Should have said this was too complicated, too fast, too dangerous. Instead, she pulled him back for another kiss, deeper this time, full of all the fury and pain and desire she'd been holding back. They stumbled into June's bedroom, hands everywhere, careful of her still healing injuries but desperate for connection. For proof they were alive, powerful, unbroken. What happened next was everything Kiara had never experienced. June touched her like she was precious and dangerous at the same time, a weapon he was honored to hold. He learned every sound she made, every place that made her gasp, adjusting to what she needed with the same strategic brilliance he applied to everything else. Afterward, they lay tangled in his expensive sheets, both breathing hard. That was, Kiara started. Necessary, June finished, and probably a terrible idea strategically. Why? Because now I have something to lose, and people with things to lose make mistakes. Kiara propped herself up on her elbow, looking down at him. Then don't lose. We both survive tomorrow. Destroy Thompson, and figure out what comes after. June pulled her down for another kiss. Deal. They fell asleep wrapped around each other, two dangerous people finding comfort in shared darkness. And when dawn came, they would go to war. Comment below if you believe in fighting fire with fire. Subscribe because tomorrow night, everything burns. The gala was exactly the kind of event Kiara had attended dozens of times before. Designer gowns, champagne fountains, people who measured their worth in zeros on their bank accounts. But tonight, she wasn't a guest. She was a ghost. June had arranged everything. A wig that changed her appearance, makeup that altered her features just enough, a dress that was elegant but unmemorable. She looked like another beautiful woman in a room full of them. No one would recognize the bride who'd disappeared a week ago. She entered the venue on June's arm. He was devastating in a custom tuxedo, every inch the successful restaurant owner, not a crime boss planning the destruction of a pharmaceutical empire. You okay? He murmured as they passed security. I'm perfect, Kiara replied, her smile sharp. Where's Thompson? Working the room, playing the concerned fiancé whose beloved is in treatment. June's jaw tightened. His performance is very convincing. They spotted him across the ballroom. Darius Thompson, handsome in his tuxedo, shaking hands and accepting sympathies from people who believed his lies about Kiara's breakdown. He looked every inch the grieving fiancé, not the monster who'd beaten her and thrown her away. Rage burned through Kiara's veins. Easy, June warned, feeling her tension. We stick to the plan. Let him have his moment. It'll make the fall so much sweeter. They circulated separately, June playing his role, Kiara disappearing into the crowd. She watched Thompson give interviews to society reporters, talking about how difficult this time was, how he just wanted Kiara to get the help she needed. Her phone buzzed. Text from Tay. In position. Give the signal and I'll start the broadcast. Another text from Dante. All teams ready. Clinics will be hit the moment Thompson is exposed. And one from Mincio. Your parents just arrived. North entrance. Kiara's heart stopped. She turned. And there they were. Her mother and father, both looking older than she remembered, exhausted by worry. Her mother wore the dress she'd bought for the wedding rehearsal dinner. Her father's hand was on her mother's back, supporting her. They were here because Thompson had invited them. Probably told them he was dedicating the fundraiser to Kiara's recovery, using their grief as a prop for his performance. The fury that filled Kiara in that moment was almost overwhelming. June appeared at her elbow. I know, but we can't deviate from the plan. He's using my parents. Which makes this even more important. We destroy him publicly, in front of them, so they know the truth. Kiara took a deep breath, centering herself. You're right. Let's end this. At 8 o'clock, Darius Thompson took the stage. The ballroom quieted. He stood at the podium, confident and charming, beginning his speech about the importance of international medical aid. Kiara moved to the back of the room, near the exit. June positioned himself closer to the stage. Their teams were in place. She sent the text to Ty. Now. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Thompson continued his speech, talking about compassion and global health. Then the screens behind him flickered. His presentation disappeared, replaced by a different image. A spreadsheet showing names and ages. Children, women, men. Locations. Prices. Thompson stopped mid-sentence, turning to look at the screen. Confusion crossed his face. What the hell? The image changed. Now it was financial records. Millions of dollars flowing through shell companies, details of organ sales, payment records for illegal medical procedures. The audience began murmuring. Turn that off, Thompson snapped at someone off stage. But Tay was better than their technicians. The images kept coming. Photos of the illegal clinics, testimonies from victims, medical records showing experimental drug trials on unwilling subjects. And at the center of it all, Thompson's signature on document after document. The murmuring became shocked exclamations. This is a mistake, Thompson said, his charm cracking. Someone has hacked. Not a hack, Kiara said, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent ballroom. She stepped forward, removing her wig, letting everyone see her face. Just the truth. The room erupted. People recognized her. The missing fiancé. The woman Thompson claimed was in a mental health facility. Kiara? Her mother's voice shocked and relieved and confused. But Kiara kept her eyes on Darius. Hello, darling? Did you miss me? Thompson's face went through several expressions. Shock, fear, rage, calculation. Then he settled on concerned fiancé. Kiara, sweetheart, you're not well. You need to come with me. I'm perfectly well. Better than I've been in months, actually. She moved closer to the stage. You threw me out of your car last week after beating me half to death. Remember? Left me in an alley to die because I found out about your trafficking operation. That's insane. You're clearly having a psychotic episode. Then explain the evidence on the screen behind you. Explain your signature on those documents. Explain the clinics operating under Thompson Pharmaceuticals' umbrella that aren't licensed for the procedures they're performing. Security started moving toward Kiara, but June stepped into their path. His men materialized from the crowd, creating a barrier. I'd let her finish, June said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of threat. Thompson recognized June, the restaurant owner, the crime boss. You're behind this. I'm just providing security, June replied with a cold smile. Miss Mitchell is doing this all by herself. Kiara reached the stage. You chose me because my family's company designed the software running your trafficking database. You were going to marry me, gain control of Sentinel Tech, and make sure your crimes stayed hidden forever. Lies, Thompson snarled. All of this is fabricated. Then why, Kiara interrupted, are federal agents currently raiding your clinics in 5 states? Why are your shell company accounts being frozen as we speak? And why are international authorities arresting your partners in 7 countries? Thompson's face went pale. That's right, Kiara continued. While you've been giving your speech, my partner has been systematically destroying every piece of your operation. By tomorrow morning, every major news outlet in the world will have this evidence. You're done, Darius. Thompson lunged at her, but June was faster. He was on the stage in seconds, his hand around Thompson's throat, slamming him against the podium. You threw her away like garbage, June said, his voice deadly quiet but amplified by the microphone. Big mistake, because someone else picked her up, and we turned her into your worst nightmare. Security was shouting. Guests were recording everything on their phones. The live stream was broadcasting to hundreds of thousands of viewers. Kiara's mother pushed through the crowd. Kiara, what is happening? Kiara turned to her parents, seeing their shock and confusion. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry I didn't call, but Darius beat me and tried to kill me when I discovered his crimes. I've been gathering evidence to destroy him and protect our company. Her father's expression shifted from confusion to fury as he looked at Thompson. You hurt my daughter? She's lying, Thompson started, but Kiara's father moved faster than anyone expected for a man in his 60s. His fist connected with Thompson's jaw. Chaos erupted. Security didn't know who to restrain. Guests were fleeing or filming. Media were calling in the story of the century. And through it all, federal agents entered the ballroom. Darius Thompson, the lead agent announced, you're under arrest for human trafficking, money laundering, fraud, and about 30 other charges we'll get to. As agents cuffed Thompson, he looked at Kiara with pure hatred. You destroyed everything. No, Kiara corrected. I destroyed you. There's a difference. She watched as they led him away. This man who'd almost owned her future, who'd thought he could break her and get away with it. Then she turned to June. Is it done? The clinics? Dante just confirmed. All locations secured. Victims are being taken to safe houses, given medical care, connected with immigration lawyers. It's done. Kiara felt something release in her chest. Relief, triumph, exhaustion. Her mother pulled her into a fierce hug. My baby, I thought we'd lost you. I'm okay, Mom, I'm okay. Her father joined the embrace, and for a moment, Kiara let herself be their daughter again. Safe, loved, protected. But when she pulled back, she caught June's eye across the chaos, and she knew she wasn't the same daughter who'd left them a week ago. She'd become something else. Something dangerous and powerful and unbroken. And there was no going back. Drop a comment if you believe in rising from the ashes. Subscribe because this story isn't over yet. 3 months later. Kiara stood in the office of Sentinel Tech Solutions, looking out over Manhattan. It was her office now, Director of Security and Compliance, a position her parents had created specifically for her. The merger with Thompson Pharmaceuticals had been dissolved, of course. Thompson himself was awaiting trial on 247 counts, ranging from human trafficking to racketeering. 17 of his partners had already pled guilty. The illegal clinics had been shut down, and over 400 victims had been freed and given paths to legal residency and compensation. Kiara's testimony, combined with the evidence she'd gathered, had made the case airtight. She'd become a hero in the media, the brave whistleblower who'd nearly died exposing a trafficking empire. But that wasn't the whole truth. The whole truth included June and his organization, the illegal methods they'd used, the violence that had been necessary to free some of the victims. Those parts never made it into the official story. There was a knock on her door. June entered, carrying coffee from the shop downstairs. How's the empire? He asked, handing her a cup. Growing. We've landed 3 new contracts this month. Turns out companies like the idea of security software designed by someone who actually cares about stopping criminals. Imagine that. June sat on the edge of her desk. How are your parents handling everything? Better. They've stopped asking me to see a therapist every day. Now it's only every other day. Progress. Kiara smiled, but it faded quickly. June, we need to talk about what comes next. I know. They'd been having versions of this conversation for weeks. Kiara was rebuilding her legitimate life. June was still running his very much illegitimate organization. The lines between their worlds were becoming increasingly complicated. I care about you, Kiara said carefully. What we did together, what we built, it matters to me. But I don't know how to be in a relationship with someone whose business involves things I can't know about, things that could make me complicit. June was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, What if I told you I've been restructuring? Restructuring what? My organization, Huagok, is going fully legitimate. I'm divesting from the illegal operations, turning them over to other people. The protection rackets, the gambling, all of it. Kiara stared at him. Why? Because I found something worth more than power or territory or fear. He cupped her face gently. I found you. And I'm not losing you because I can't let go of an empire I never wanted in the first place. June, you don't have to change who you are for me. I'm not. I'm changing who I am for me. Because you made me remember why I took over this organization to begin with. To protect people. To provide justice when the system failed. And I can do that without being a crime boss. What will you do instead? There's a need for private security, for organizations that protect vulnerable populations, for systems that actually work to stop trafficking and exploitation. Legitimate systems. I'm thinking of starting a foundation, using everything I know about how the criminal world operates to shut it down from the inside. Kiara felt hope bloom in her chest. You're serious. Completely. I'll need a partner, though. Someone brilliant at security and compliance who understands both the legal and illegal sides of things. I might know someone. Kiara smiled. But she's expensive. I can afford it. June kissed her, deep and slow. So, what do you say, Kiara Mitchell? Want to build something legitimate together? I think I do. On one condition. Name it. I want to find your sister's recruiters, the people who lured her to America and handed her over to Thompson. They're still operating, and they need to be stopped. June's expression went dark. Then he nodded. Deal. We shut them down. Legally this time. Legally, Kiara agreed. With maybe a little creative interpretation of the law. Now you're speaking my language. They kissed again, and Kiara felt something she hadn't felt since before that night in the rain. Peace. Hope. A future that wasn't defined by survival, but by choice. Her phone rang. Her mother. I have to take this, she told June. I know. I'll see you tonight? Definitely. After he left, Kiara answered the call. Hi, Mom. Kiara, sweetheart, I was calling to remind you about Sunday dinner. Your father is cooking. I'll be there. Can I bring someone? A pause. That restaurant owner? June? Yes. Another pause, longer this time. Your father and I have been discussing this. We know he helped you when you needed it, and we know there are parts of that story you haven't told us. Mom, we don't need to know everything. But we need to know he's good to you, that he won't hurt you like Darius did. Kiara thought about June catching her in that alley, protecting her, arming her, believing in her capacity for revenge and justice, thought about him restructuring his entire life to build something with her. He's good to me, Mom. Better than I deserve. Then bring him to dinner. Your father wants to meet the man who helped save our daughter. After they hung up, Kiara looked out over the city again. Somewhere out there, Darius Thompson sat in a cell awaiting trial. Somewhere out there, hundreds of people were starting new lives because she and June had taken a terrible situation and turned it into justice. And somewhere in Koreatown, a restaurant owner was dismantling a criminal empire so he could build something better with the woman he loved. The rain had washed away Kiara's old life. What rose from that alley was someone stronger, fiercer, and unbreakable. Someone who understood that sometimes salvation came from the most unexpected places. Sometimes from monsters who turned out to be men. Sometimes from darkness that led to light. And sometimes, the person who caught you when you fell was exactly the person you needed to help you rise. Kiara picked up her phone and texted June, "Sunday dinner, my parents' house. 6 p.m. Don't be late." His response was immediate. "Wouldn't miss it. Love you. Love you too." She set down the phone and got back to work. There was an empire to build, justice to serve, and a future to create. And for the first time since that night in the rain, Kiara Mitchell knew exactly who she was. Someone who'd been broken and rebuilt herself stronger. Someone who'd faced her monster and won. Someone who'd found love in darkness and chosen to walk toward the light. The rain had tried to wash her away. Instead, it had baptized her into something new. And she was just getting started. Thank you for watching this journey from broken to unbreakable. Subscribe if you believe in second chances and dangerous love. Comment below where you're watching from and let us know. Have you ever had to rebuild yourself from nothing? Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is rise from the ashes and build an empire from the ruins. This is Beth's Library, where we breathe life into stories about falling, rising, and becoming stronger than anyone thought possible. See you in the next story.